has a shot at the Iowa State House today as voters get ready to caucus in 2 weeks. The race for the White House shifts into high gear this month with all eyes on Iowa and New Hampshire.
Let the year begin. And joining us now is former DNC chair Donna Brazile and former New York Republican Congressman John Katko and ABC News political director Rick Klein. Good to have you all with us. All right, Rick, we'll start with you. Let's talk about the president's approval ratings right here. The latest 538 polling average shows him at 39%. What does this tell you about Biden's chances, especially when you talk about seeking re-election?
Yeah, and as you head into this re-election year, people talk about elections as either a choice or a referendum. How do you want to square up? Do you want to give it a choice between two candidates or an up or down on the current guy? That decision is essentially made for the president with numbers like this. He has no choice but to make it a choice, because if it's a referendum, these are the kind of approval ratings that has an incumbent president lose almost every time, almost without exception. So now the challenge for the president, you try to get those numbers up a little bit with economic news and some other items. You also make this a choice between Biden and Trump. You see them talk about MAGA, you see them talk about democracy, you see them talk about the Dobbs decision. That's going to define the year, basically because it has to, because otherwise you're talking about a president who's not going to win.
All right, John, let's talk about the numbers when we look at the Republican side. Former President Trump maintains a very commanding lead. His next closest opponents, Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, they are trailing significantly behind. So is there a possibility that anyone other than Trump can win in Iowa?
There's no question that there's a possibility, but really got to look at the trend lines. And I think in Iowa, it's going to be a tough road to hoe for DeSantis or Haley to catch Trump. But they got to show some promise. And I think that's really going to be centered around what happens in New Hampshire. We've seen polling lately with Haley in New Hampshire, and she's really starting to take root. And so if she can somehow pull off a win in New Hampshire or come out of New Hampshire very strong going into her home state, you never know. But listen, it's a tough road to hoe. And what really is surprising for me is that no one's considering the fact that anybody other than Trump will destroy Biden in a general election. And why Republicans aren't looking at that is beyond me.
All right, let's bring in Donna Brazile. And again, Donna, it is always good to see you. This is a jam-packed month here. Let's talk about it. The Iowa caucuses are in 2 weeks, and the New Hampshire primary is on the 23rd. So just how critical is this stretch during the campaign season?
Well, it's crunch time. It's crunch time for the candidates, because if you can't make it in Iowa or New Hampshire, I doubt very seriously that you will get a boost in South Carolina and going into Super Tuesday, which is on March 5th this year, where over 14 states will hold their primary or caucuses. If you're not able to capture the attention of those caucus goers in Iowa or the primary voters in New Hampshire, I doubt you will have the momentum, the money to be able to even be number two. Donald Trump is the front runner on the Republican side. He has shown that unlike in 2016, he has put boots on the ground. And while he prefers rallies to retail politics, there's no question that to beat his momentum or to capture first place, you got to be there where it happens.
Rick, the Israel-Hamas conflict has really become a key issue for a lot of voters. How does this play into President Biden's re-election efforts?
This has divided the Democratic Party at the worst possible moment for Joe Biden. There are also Democratic primaries coming up. Now, Biden doesn't have that serious opposition, but it does give his opponents an opportunity to highlight these divisions. And you've seen Democrats come out very strongly condemning President Biden's handling of this, his backing of the Israelis for the most part. And if, as is likely, this extends throughout the entire year, you're going to see these fissures. And this is going to be a year where we're going to hear about third-party candidates like never before. And a lot of people that are upset right now with President Biden's leadership, either on Israel or a range of other issues, might have other options. So even as President Biden tries to take that fight to Trump, tries to bring it to the general election, he has to worry about his own base. This conflict is a classic example and a recurring reminder of the problems he may have just getting Democrats to turn out.
We're all watching. All right, John Katko, Donna Brazile, and Rick Klein, thanks again for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, hey there, GMA fans. Robin Roberts here. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Lots of great stuff here. So go on, click the subscribe button right over here to get more of awesome videos and content from GMA every day, anytime. We thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the morning on GMA.